Verse number 34. And when we said to the angels, prostrate before Adam, so they prostrated, all but Iblis. He refused and joined the infidels. The episode recounted in the foregoing verses has shown how the angels came to learn that Adam alayhi salam was superior to them insofar as he possessed the forms of knowledge necessary for the function of divine vice-regency, while they themselves did not, nor did the jinns. Now Allah willed to manifest this superiority in a visible and concrete form. So He commanded the angels to prostrate themselves before Adam alayhi salam in His honor. They obeyed except Iblis or Satan, who, in his pride, refused to do so. If we go by the words of the Holy Quran, the command was given to the angels alone, but in accepting Iblis from those who obeyed, the text also suggests that the command was given to all the created beings that existed at the time and possessed understanding, including the jinns as well as the angels. But the Holy Quran mentions the angels alone, because when superior beings like the angels were required to show their respect for Adam alayhi salam, inferior creatures like the jinns must, it goes without saying, have been ordered to do the same. Angels prostrate before Adam. In this verse, the angels have been commanded to prostrate themselves before Adam alayhi salam. Another verse of the Holy Quran tells us that the parents and the brothers of Joseph alayhim salam, on reaching Egypt, prostrated themselves before him. Surah number 12, ayah number 100. Evidently, such a prostration cannot have been intended as an act of worship, for worshipping anyone other than Allah is an act of association, shirk, and infidelity, kufr, and hence cannot possibly be allowed in any sharia. So it appears that in the days of the ancient prophets, prostrating oneself before somebody must have been an act of courtesy or a way of showing one's respect, and enjoyed the same value as we do in our own days, things like a simple greeting, a handshake, the kissing of hand, or standing up in someone's honor. Imam al-Jassas has said in his Ahkam al-Quran that it was permissible in the Sharia of earlier prophets alayhimussalam to prostrate oneself in honor of one's elders, but the Sharia of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has forbidden gestures like prostrating oneself or bowing down very low or standing with one hand placed on the other in the manner of the salah before someone, all of which may suggest an act of worship, and has allowed only greeting, salam, and handshake as a gesture of courtesy or respect. It is easy to understand the reason of such a prohibition. Association, infidelity, and the worship of anyone other than Allah are things which, in their nature, go against the very principle of Iman, and cannot therefore be tolerated by any Sharia. There are, however, certain acts and gestures which are not in themselves acts of association or infidelity, but may, on account of the ignorance or indifference of people, become a prelude to association and infidelity. So the Sharia of the earlier prophets did not forbid such acts in an absolute manner, but prevented them from being used as the instruments of association and infidelity. For example, making pictures of living things is not in itself an act of association or infidelity, and was hence permissible in the earlier Sharias. In speaking of how the jinns used to serve Sulaiman alayhimussalam, Solomon, the Holy Quran itself says they made for him whatever he liked, places of worship and pictures. Surah number 34, ayah number 13. Similarly, prostrating oneself before somebody as a gesture of respect was permissible in the earlier Sharias. But gradually the practice opened the way to association and infidelity on account of people's ignorance and thoughtlessness, and even caused grave distortions in the Sharias of different prophets, which had to be rectified by other prophets and other Sharias. Since the Holy Prophet ﷺ is the last of all the prophets and messengers of Allah, and his Sharia is the last Sharia and is to remain valid up to the end of time, Allah has, in order to protect it against all distortion, stopped every chink through which association or idolatry could possibly enter. That is why this Sharia has strictly forbidden all those practices which had at one time or another served as a means towards association or idol worship. For example, making pictures of living things has been totally banned. prostrating oneself before somebody, even as a mark of respect, has been forbidden. It is not permissible to offer one's salah at those hours in the day which the infidels had reserved for worshipping their gods, for even this slight and external correspondence might lead to association, and according to a hadith reported by Muslim, it is not allowed to call one slave an abd, nor is a slave allowed to call his master a rab. These words respectively signify a slave and one who gives nurture, and are as such harmless, but they can be misconstrued, and may lead ignorant slaves or helpless or subjugated people into the worship of their masters, hence the prohibition. With regard to the question of prostration, we may add that, according to some authentic scholars, salah, the basic form of Islamic worship, comprises of 4 kinds of actions: standing upright, bowing, sitting down, and prostrating oneself. The first 2 of these, standing up and sitting down, are actions which one habitually does in the course of one's daily chores, and which one also performs as acts of worship in the course of salah. But the other 2, bowing down and prostrating oneself, are actions which one does not go through as a matter of habit, and which are characteristically associated with salah and ibadah. Hence, it is that the Islamic Sharia has identified them with acts of worship and forbidden the Muslims to bow down or prostrate themselves before anyone other than Allah. Given that the Holy Quran itself speaks of prostration as a mark of respect, one would wish to know on what grounds it has been affirmed that the Islamic Sharia has forbidden this practice. As to this question, we may point out that several well-known narrations coming down to us from the Holy Prophet ﷺ through quite a large number of his blessed companions are there to establish that prostrating oneself before somebody as a mark of respect is unlawful, haram. To cite one such narration, the Holy Prophet ﷺ has said that if he could allow people to prostrate themselves before anyone other than Allah as a mark of respect, he would have commanded wives to prostrate before their husbands. This clearly shows that prostration as a mark of respect is absolutely forbidden, and no allowance can, in this respect, be made in favor of any created being. We may add that the hadith that we have just referred to has come down to us through 20 companions, while according to Tadrib al-Rawi, the famous book on the fundamentals of the science of hadith, a tradition which has been reported by only 10 companions is called mutawatir, and enjoys the same authority in the matter of injunctions as the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran describes Iblis or Satan as an infidel. His infidelity does not arise from disobedience in his action, for according to the Sharia, giving up an obligation in practice is only a sin and a transgression, but does not constitute infidelity. Iblis became an infidel because he had defied and challenged a divine commandment, and had, in refusing to prostrate himself, virtually said that, in his opinion, Adam alayhi salam was not worthy of it. Iblis had attained such a high degree in science and knowledge that he was called the Awus al-Malaika, the peacock among the angels. How did he then come to commit such a suicidal error? Some scholars say that it was because of his pride and vanity that Allah took back from him the wealth of knowledge and understanding, and hence he came to act like an ignorant fool. Others have suggested that his error was due to self-love and ambition. The famous commentary, Ruh al-Bayan, resolves the question by quoting a line of verse in Arabic which shows that once the aid of Allah has been withdrawn from a man, he can no longer save himself from sins, and all the efforts he makes only serves to push him further and further into misguidance. May Allah in His mercy save all of us from such a fate. The commentary draws from it the conclusion that one should not be vain about one's learning, or one's deeds, or even about one's iman, for iman is valid only if it lasts until one's final breath and into the first stage of one's journey to the other world.